I am here with Bender.
And I'm here with Sydney, and this is BS Astrology at our new location.
At our new location. What's up, y'all? This is episode 16. We're going to be covering Monday, April 21st through April 27th. So, yeah. How's it going?
Not bad. Not bad. We're filming like right off of
The full moon.
The full moon, the Libra full moon. How'd it go for you?
It went pretty well. I was in Chicago and now I'm back, and behind this camera is a house that needs to be put together. I moved also. So the full moon brought, and eclipse season for me brought a move and travel simultaneously, having to do with astrology, and like I traveled for astrology.
Yeah. It's kind of like your life's work, honestly.
Yeah, right now it is.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So
cool.
Yeah, all good.
Cool. It was very social.
Yeah, I mean, y'all had an uprising at work.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. Yeah, we planned an uprising at my job. Went pretty well.
Yeah.
And then I went out like 3 days in a row.
And then you were just social.
I was like super social.
You did the full Libra thing.
I did.
That's
and
good.
It's my moon, so it felt really, really nice to be doing Libra things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
And this one also helped me move while I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Which was, and thank you for that. So thank you so much.
You were missed because we had fun.
Oh my God.
No need to thank. It was actually a lot of fun. So.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so we're here. Yeah. We're in the new space now. It is sick. It makes me think of, like people talk about the apartment on Friends, and everyone's like, it is so unrealistic that anyone can actually live in that apartment. It makes me feel like we're in the Friends apartment.
Yeah. My partner and I think we manifested this, and I'm really excited to see like what we can build out and make happen, and especially in making a space that feels really comfortable for our friends to come visit. Like that was really big focus for us. Like, can we imagine like our community like being here with us, because we do have like meetups with like all of our queers. So okay. But this is
going to be a great space for community.
Yeah. So let's get into it, though. We have episode 16. Quick little rundown. All the planets are currently direct until May 4th. This is important because if we have things and goals and missions that we are trying to kind of get rolling, we're really going to want to be trying to get those moving before May 4th, because then we're going to have some retrogrades starting to come through.
And Mars is really spicy this week.
Yeah.
This week that we're going to be talking about.
So. Mars is spicy, but Mars is in Leo and Mars is direct, thank God. So we're going to be kind of feeling fired up, Mars and Leo, fired up to kind of move forward. Mars is still trying Neptune for this entire week, which I particularly like because it's like really trying to get us to like push forward with our ideals and our dreams and our visions. Kind of makes our drives a little bit more spiritual as well. Like we have a spiritual goal and aim.
Yeah, it's almost like being called to something greater than yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Venus remains in sextile aspect to Uranus all week. So we're still within the restructuring of our value system. And we are recording this on Monday, April 14th, 12:41 p.m. in case people want to check the chart of when we're doing this. We did not elect the time, by the way, so do not judge us. Because
we are wild today, honestly.
Mercury is anoretic right now. I do know that much. But we have the restructuring of our economic system, our value system, how money works in the world, also individually. A whole bunch of relationships are kind of getting new, fresh perspectives, and possibly just a restructuring altogether.
Yep. Yeah, because we also have Venus-Saturn conjunction happening this week. And so, it's weighty this week. It's like we have the energy to move toward what we want, and also the energy is asking us to really commit to something. And move forward with that.
Saturn is also in a sextile aspect to Uranus. So this is a reordering of basically society, the
Mm-hmm.
structures that we hold near and dear to us, or not so dear, honestly.
Yeah.
And they're kind of on slippery ground being in
Or
Pisces.
that we've been told to hold dearly, even though they haven't actually been working for us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep, yep,
This
yep.
is this is almost like introducing new social norms because of the restructuring
Yeah,
of everything. And
yeah. For better and worse,
it's a really wild time to be
Yeah,
alive.
scary, weird times.
Yeah.
So,
Jupiter is still contra Antiscia to Pluto. This is going to be, I think, an important thing to keep in mind because we do have a new moon that has Jupiter square the nodes.
yep.
Jupiter contra Antiscia to Pluto is really like some sort of awareness around, like, things around law, immigration, judges,
Hmm.
um, the kinds of like higher learning infrastructure that we have, I think, is a part of this story. And we do know that there
Hmm.
is a whole reordering of how teaching even happens in this world. There's a
Yep.
whole bunch of stuff around how judges are behaving, whether they're going to uphold what
Hmm.
our hair Cheeto
Yeah.
is trying to implement or not.
Hmm. And I think Neptune is definitely bringing a lot of contradictory, kind of confusing,
Yeah,
muddled information, right? Because there are some judges
there's
that are
also
trying
that.
to push forward,
Yeah,
and be and maintain ideals that we've all been living by, and there are other judges who are like, nah, we're gonna
yeah.
we're gonna be the snakes in the
Yeah,
pit,
what's the new dream?
Yeah.
Because we're at the very first beginnings of it, so we're getting a taste of what it could be, but I don't think we have quite enough information yet.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. We don't have enough information yet and I think the judges are again a good example because we have judges who are trying to hold on to the old way of things. And while there may be aspects of the old way of things that may have been more humane,
Mm-hmm.
they clearly still were not working. Otherwise, they wouldn't be
Yeah.
crumbling as we
Yeah. I
speak.
mean, our systems were never really truly humane, even though I mean, I'm sure that there were great leaps forward that are now being completely undone, but
Yeah. But yeah, so
yeah.
there's
Uh,
no such thing as a solid foundation built on genocide and slavery.
yeah.
And I think we're starting to see the effects of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the biggie that is building all week, we have Mars opposite Pluto. The exact hit is on the 26th, so it's at the end of this week. So we have to remember that this energy is in full effect, like
Hmm.
really, really building all week.
Yeah.
No matter what we say, all week, it could be angry, super hyphy. It can
Hmm.
be violent. Mars Pluto oppositions, Mars Pluto in general can just be violence.
Hmm. It can just be violence. In other cases, it can also just be like really like missing the mark, like trying to hit something and missing the mark,
Yeah.
right?
Th- this is
And
clashes of ego.
cat yep. Hmm.
This can be around protest energy,
Yep.
certainly. There is an awareness of probably a lot of the anger that society holds
Yeah.
and what people are willing to do to express that.
Yeah.
The fixity of it all, I think, is even more explosive than if it were in, a mutable or even cardinal. It's almost like the explosiveness of it all, like, really, the energy holds weightier and
Hmm.
really has the potential to kind of reorganize our sense of stability and security.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. No matter what, I think no matter where this is happening in your chart with that Mars Pluto opposition, we're talking about anger
Yeah.
and we're talking about
Rage.
rage and how, what we do with that rage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is going to be a fighty, fired up kind of week.
Yeah.
No matter how you slice and dice it.
Yeah.
Um,
And as a note again about the Mars Pluto opposition is that it's going to be happening at 3 degrees. So if you have anything in fixed signs around really from like 0 to 6, maybe even 7,
mhm.
that energy is probably really going to impact your chart. And if you don't have those aspects or those degrees in your chart, that does not mean that this isn't going to show up in a certain sector of life for you, or you watching the people around you have these things. It's like, even if you think you're safe, like you're covered, all of a sudden all these bombs are kind of going off around you, is kind
Yeah.
of what it could be.
Yeah.
And I also think that there's something about children here, the Mars Leo.
Yeah,
You know, Leo being the sign of
I
children.
think that Leo always brings children or our inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, that
Expression.
self-expression,
And we are dealing,
innocence. That's
yeah.
maybe it's the death of innocence.
And we are right.
know?
I mean, we're also dealing with so much around censorship around how we express ourselves.
Yeah.
So there could be something there too,
Mm-hmm.
especially because we're seeing like the whispers of like our country being more of saying like, oh well, you can't travel there because you said this here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you posted this thing, you communicated your wishes or thoughts that were against the regime currently.
I think that's one of the scariest things, and I think that's what we're seeing with this Leo stuff is we are entering a time when we do have to start being afraid of what we are posting publicly.
There's definitely some sort of control being implemented upon our sense of creativity and what we think we can be creative in, like the types of art we make, even
types of art we make,
how we write a poem or how we film a video. So all that to say is I think we should just get into the astrology of the week. So we're going to start with Monday, April 21st. We have the moon in Aquarius early in the morning. We start with the sextile to Mercury in Aries, which, I mean, it's in the middle of the night, so it's not really that important, but I do think it's kind of nice to have this like starting off where we are able to easily express ourselves.
Yeah. And I do think even when it happens in the middle of the night, assuming that we're sleeping, if you have any transit that happens in the middle of the night, I do think you kind of wake up with that energy because it's directly impacting your quality of sleep. Right. So I still think it's worth paying attention to and just thinking like this is the energy you're going to be waking up with. Right.
And that's it, pretty much holds like that sextile. You're right. That sextile kind of holds all day and afternoon. Then we get into some kind of interesting territory.
Yeah. There's no really major aspects, but it's again we have a lot of semi-squares and we have a quintile happening. And I always like to go back to kind of like the dodgeball thing where you're just kind of like
and we
adjusting with discomfort.
We're feeling things build and emerge. With the running circuit of the things that we just talked about a couple minutes ago running in the background. So we're watching an emergence of these, you know, things around our value, things around the structures that we're trying to create in our lives, the things around our dreams, and we're not quite able to like get a full grasp on it. I think is really what Monday is about. You're like, what is this all about? And you're like, I don't know yet.
I think it can almost feel like monkey mind a little bit, you know, where there's just going to be a lot of things popping off, especially with that moon sextile Mercury that we're waking up with. It can be nice, but that is definitely stimulating some of our thought processes. Right?
Emotionally and mentally stimulating. And moon is in Aquarius. I mean, in that Mercury in Aries is in a fire sign. So this isn't like super emotional. This is definitely more like cerebral. It's a bit detached. We're able to kind of see the bigger picture. So all things considered, I think this is one of the most chill days.
I was going to say, it's actually like, it almost starts out anticlimactic, right? Like this week is going to be a big week, but you're not going to feel it on Monday. I would say like I think the moon quintile Chiron is nice to mention.
Especially because the day before we had the moon conjunct Pluto.
Exactly. Yeah. So this could be a nice time to be a nice, gentle kind of synthesizing wounds, finding some creative ways of healing some wounds that might pop up. But again, because it's pretty impersonal. We've got moon in Aquarius. It's not going to feel like that really like gut punching, you know, deep, hard hitting kind of wounds that we're addressing. It could just be like, again, just like kind of like mentally processing these things. But yeah, that's pretty much Monday. Is it's going to start off low key. There's going to be a lot that you're going to be thinking about, and there's going to be some discomfort, but I think it's actually going to be pretty low key.
I would say just really trying to, it's almost like you look at your task list and you're like, I'm not going to get super emotionally invested in this. I'm just going to push forward.
Yeah.
Even if things are kind of coming up where I feel a little like, maybe I should pay attention to that right now. It's just kind of knowing that the energy is building throughout the week, trying to implement as much on your task list as possible, I think is kind of key here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say this is a good, because we know there's going to be a lot coming up later in the week. This Monday is a good day for you to not be putting that pressure on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, like look at what you have to do, just kind of persevere, move through it. But this is definitely a good day to just kind of let your heart relax a little bit. I would say nothing really emotional is going to be coming to the surface on this day, and it will later in the week.
Yeah.
So.
So let's go into Tuesday. That's April 22nd. It's Mars's day. Mars is still in Leo, fired up. He has a drive to be creative and express himself. And, there's a bit of like kind of prideful behavior that can kind of happen here.
Yep. Some me energy.
Some me. We do have the moon in Aquarius trine Jupiter and Gemini. I mean, that's extremely social.
Yep. Two air signs who are in a nice trine together. Yeah,
it's thinky talky. And I think there's something about being able to maybe emotionally intuit all of the ways that you've been feeling without getting too deep into it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that trine to Jupiter is definitely going to expand some of our ability to think through some of these things.
Yeah. And the nice thing is with this trine so early in the morning, 3:50 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the void of course begins. And so we kind of we have this closing aspect with the void moon, which is quite nice to kind of pull us through the day. However,
and if you're East Coast, you'll probably be waking up with that energy, which actually is really nice.
It is nice, but like let's just skip forward. Let's to miss those minor aspects and go to 10:26 a.m.
Yeah, Sun square Mars, last quarter square, Sun square Mars.
Yeah, this is a crisis.
Yeah,
this is a crisis point between our egos and our drives. This is anger.
This is anger. This is ego clashes for sure.
This is I don't want to change, but you're making me.
Exactly.
And I don't want to.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to change is an important thing because this is about identity, right? This is about the sun and it's Mars and Leo.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely something where we may all be faced with something that we need to change with ourselves. And it could be like the very thing that we have always avoided or we just refuse. I mean, if there's anything about Leo, it's like if you try to criticize Leo, they're like, that's not me. Right? So, this is the moment where you can either start to acknowledge some things that you need to change or you're going to have a really bad time.
Yeah. And with the signs being of Taurus and Leo, there is definitely something about creativity, the kind of like artistic magic you're able to create and being confronted, frankly, around like whatever that is, whether it is like, and Taurus is internal, Leo is external, yin and yang. So they're just not quite, I don't know, Sun and Taurus is just like, just leave me be.
Yeah.
Just like, leave me be. It does not care about the intention that a Mars and Leo would want.
Yeah. I see it as like, Betty's having a dream. Betty, you want to wake up?
It's okay. Let her sleep.
She will bark in her sleep. So
well, if it happens, it happens.
But when I think of like the difference between Taurus and Leo, because Taurus it's Venus, it still very much cares about aesthetics and beauty and art and all those things. But Taurus like will paint the painting and put it up and be like, I'm happy that that's there, and isn't particularly interested in putting its signature on it.
Yeah.
But when Leo puts the painting up, Leo's like, look at this thing I did.
Tell me it's great.
Yeah, tell me how good it is.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a conflict between those two things.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and there's, I don't know, I think about, Mars and Leo is squaring its ruler that receives it in its detriment.
Yeah.
So no matter what, like, way we're being pushed to take some sort of action, it doesn't feel good. This isn't a mutually beneficial thing that's going on.
It's good, right at 1 degree.
Yeah.
So this is also very like initiative, like it feels explosive. for sure.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the moon sextile Chiron, which can offer, and maybe it's like through this crisis point, now we enter a place of healing or wisdom around, you know, identity wounds.
Yeah.
That
It's interesting that the
here.
moon's still going to be in Aquarius for this, right?
I think it really wants us to detach.
It
It's
wants us, yeah.
Like you just gotta
It's
not
like,
get too. It's not that deep.
yeah. And it could, like, I think that could be a nice salve of like getting out of your ego space, right? Of like, okay, you're having this crisis of ego. Just remember that, like, you're not the only fucking person on this planet. You're not the only one going through shit right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's not that deep. You're not that special.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Which can be comforting when you're so caught up in whatever ego wound you might be moving through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And 2:48 p.m. Moon square Uranus. This is some sort of emotional shock and upset. You know, some sort of like, oh hey, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it not necessarily very comfortable. However, evolutionarily,
Got it.
Thank
Nailed
you.
it.
The moon in Aquarius is squaring up with its ruler.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, I feel this way. And Uranus is like, it's not that deep.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
like, it's not that deep. It is about like our sense of security and stability, but also like we're going to need to like detach from the ways that you are maybe overly detached. A moon in Aquarius can do.
Yep.
You need to get a little bit more simple.
And you brought this up in evolutionary astrology too, is that Uranus can point to wound signatures.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of things about trauma. So there could be something thrown up here about emotional trauma that we need to have some sort of interaction with. And it would be in a third quarter square, I believe, moon in Aquarius. Yeah. So it'd be in that last quarter square. No, fourth quarter square. Sorry, pardon me. It'll be in that last quarter square. So there's definitely a crisis and awareness around like some trauma that we have to deal with and try to detach from. There's like, it's also an intuitive hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
not comfy. I mean, by any means, anything with fixed stuff is just not comfy. So.
No, it's not comfy. And the thing that's coming to mind, thinking on a macro level, this is something that I've been meditating on with Leo stuff a lot, is this idea. Because I think especially in like pop culture, spiritual, like pop astrology, all that kind of stuff, we talk a lot about ego death, right? And this concept of ego death and releasing ego. And I think that we're not often having that flip side conversation of ego is an essential part of the human experience. It is necessary for us to have ego expression, but what is healthy ego expression versus what is necessary? Where do we necessarily need ego death?
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, you know, when we have the contacts to Uranus, we're being asked to liberate ourselves from something.
Yeah.
And that can be through some sort of traumatic shock, right? Or it can be through some sort of sudden sense of like cosmic inspiration. And I think some of it is just our willingness to be able to like release and be willing to say, I just want to be free of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm willing to detach here.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm willing to let it go.
Yeah.
Even if I don't fully understand it yet, I'm willing to just release it into the universe and see what comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I think that way of kind of looking at things will be very useful, because then just skipping forward, 10:06 p.m., we have the moon entering Pisces.
Which
just
just very talk about deep and very emotional.
The deepest of deep, the most
deep.
emotional, the most delusional, the most, and it's almost like I got hit by trauma and now I'm the victim.
Yeah, and now I know, right? The victim of like my own trauma response, maybe.
Yeah,
you know,
certainly.
Like the patterns that, you know, when you're traumatized and you develop patterns to protect yourself due to that trauma, and now you're at a point in your life where you're still repeating that pattern even though it's super not serving you anymore, right? That's what Moon in Pisces is going to bring us into. Is
And
like,
it could possibly be like, now I'm feeling really sorry for myself.
yeah, it's like, why is this what happened to me?
Yeah.
Like, why is this the life I was given?
Yeah, and not to talk too much shit about, Pisces as a signature, but like Moon in Pisces can feel very sorry for itself.
Yeah.
But it is also a very intuitive moon, but it's also really absorbent.
Yeah.
Like it is like psychically aware of everything around it. And so I always want to ask Pisces placements, like, is that really yours? Or did you just feel other people's stuff and you weren't able to really discern what was yours versus not?
Right. And I think that's important because when we're talking about like how Moon in Pisces can be self-victimizing, if you're feeling self-victimizing but you're actually feeling someone else's feelings, the healthy way to move through that is actually to realize that you're actually experiencing empathy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is more productive than self-victimizing.
Yeah. And there's a call too with Pisces to surrender.
Yeah.
So instead of self-victimizing or feeling sorry for oneself, I think that if we remember that we can just surrender into feeling, but we don't need to do anything, we can just surrender and just like be in a space of releasing. This is like, it could be like a sense of catharsis could come through.
Yeah.
Should you be doing the Pisces thing healthfully?
Right.
Versus.
Yeah. And like
in a trauma space.
Yeah. No, and it's true. It's like, and I think again, with like healthy expression of Pisces, it is okay to feel sad about what happened. And it's okay to feel sad about your trauma.
Word.
I think the biggest thing is you're not powerless.
Yeah.
Right. You're not powerless to your, to your trauma responses.
Yeah.
You definitely have the power to practice some self-awareness, Sun Square Mars, and try to actually move past that. Let yourself experience it so that you can then move past it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be an emotional day on Tuesday.
Yeah. So let's move forward. Wednesday, April 23rd. This is Mercury's day. We actually don't really have a lot of aspect to Mercury at all, but usually, when we come to Mercury's day, it means that there's something around communication. It's a good day for communication in general.
Yep.
We do have a lot of, I would say, weird little aspects in the morning. We have a really big player that I think we should just mainly talk about. We have two big players. We have 9:54 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. After we go through these semi-sextiles and things that just kind of make us feel a little bit cranky and a little bit aware of what's coming up, we have the Sun square Pluto.
Yep. And then the second one being 8:14 p.m. Venus conjuncting Saturn.
Yeah.
But let's start with the Sun square Pluto. And I think, I don't know, I think these otherwise minor aspects leading up to it might feel bigger today. Like it's almost like that swell building toward it, toward that Sun square Pluto. Because Sun square Pluto sucks. Just
there's like this really intense drive to like express yourself.
Yeah.
And like it's not necessarily something that is very welcome.
No, not very welcome. In fact, with Pluto, it very well could be that the things you're saying are right, or you could be on to something with that, but it is very transformative and intense and penetrating energy. So people might not be ready to hear what it is that you have to say. And I think it's interesting that's going to be coming right off of that Sun square Mars.
Yeah.
Also, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's also triggering that Mars Pluto opposition.
Exactly.
Right. So the Tuesday and Wednesday, I think we get some hits that say, okay, are you ready for the big fight?
Yeah.
With Pluto's sun, I always think about like the obsession around like your drive or like the way that you are or how you shine. And like it's almost like self-obsession.
It is self-obsession. I was going to say another big thing on the macro level that comes with Sun Pluto contacts that I think is highly relevant right now is this idea of like cult of personality, right? Where we kind of base everything off of this one person or this one person's vision.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about Sun in Taurus too is like as a sun in Taurus is that we just really want to be left to be.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making ourselves busy with like what everybody else thinks, wants, needs of us. But unfortunately, we live in a society and we actually do need to keep everything in picture here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so we're being asked to like drop maybe some of our survival story stuff. Like I have to do this thing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually do need to like work with others and like be in a functioning, group or literally society, or just like working with other people, to like drop the aloneness of it, because Aries and Taurus are very like singularly minded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Taurus is just chill. They like would just want to be on their couch.
Yeah. Want to be on the couch, or like I just want to like give me the project and I just want to toil away at the project and I don't want anyone to bug me and I don't want to be micromanaged. And I think Taurus can kind of lose track of like, why was I doing this project, or like who all is this project for?
Unless you show them the money.
Yeah. And they'll never forget.
Yeah.
Or I think it could still apply, but then all they're thinking about is the money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But the sun is being,
honey.
yeah, no. But the sun is being asked by Pluto to like, really go a little bit deeper into like, why are you behaving this way? Why do you want what this thing is?
Yeah. Why did you start all this in the first place?
Yeah. Your security issues, are they helping you or are they hindering you?
Yeah.
I would hate to have Pluto squaring my sun by natally.
I'll be honest with you, even the more flowing aspects I see with people, it's still just a really like a sun. I know a lot of people with sun trine Pluto.
I mean, I have Pluto quincunx my sun.
Yeah, it's heavy energy to hold.
Yeah.
And I think it can be like very like people just have really strong reactions to you one way or the other.
Right. I mean, you're always having to have a conversation about power and power dynamics.
Yeah.
Like whether.
Yeah, this is important. This is a big part of Pluto with the sun, right? Is power dynamics. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You seemed like you were on a thread, but I do think like with Sun square Pluto, like power dynamics and how we use ego to push forward with our own, whatever it is that we want to hold power over. So I think it can be, again, I go back to this like idea of cult personality, and very obviously I'm channeling like Trump's stuff right now, because he does seem to have this hold on so many people. And he's like a dirty diaper bag. So like, what is it about this guy that keeps people holding on? And I think that there is something about those power dynamics that is definitely being explored this week. And I wish I had looked at Trump's chart for this week, because I'm just wondering like what the fuck is going on the macro level with this.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Gemini, right?
He's a Gemini. Yeah.
So I think Jupiter is doing a lot of protection
of him
right now, unfortunately. But I think it'll be very interesting when Jupiter moves into Cancer and no longer is kind of guarding him.
Do we know his rising?
Oh,
I think he's a Gemini Leo moon.
I don't know. I'll have to. Well, maybe we'll look into that at another time.
Special episode.
Anyway. Yeah. So, but like, let's keep it going. We get that Venus conjunct Saturn at 8:14 p.m. Now this is like value becomes serious business. We're having a lot of conversations around money, like financial holdings, how things are created, where they're created, our sense of stability around love. There's a lot of things around partnering that's happening right now. Commitment, things around marriage.
And I think, okay, so a lot of times my Venus ends up in the 6th house. And what I often find with it depends on your Venus sign, but I often find with Venus and Saturn, it's also like projects or work that you are committing to, like passion projects, right? So
also like something around Venusian topics become cemented. they're set in
Definitely.
stone now, like the promises that you made in your relationship, or how you're going to do finances, or how you're going to be creative with others, or your sense of
Yep.
like commitment to some sort of ideal really become cemented here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. This is Saturn contacts, as we've talked about many times before. There's a weightiness, there's a heaviness to them that can feel kind of yucky sometimes. And obviously, there's a lot of other really intense stuff happening this week. But I would like to posit that this Venus Saturn conjunction is going to be pretty advantageous for a lot of people.
It can also be pretty karmic, with Saturn being karmic.
Yeah.
And Venus will be essentially at her exaltation degree. So I think that it could maybe remove some of the sad weight.
Yeah. And I think like if there's something that you were thinking of committing to, that maybe you've been thinking about or weren't sure about, I think this conjunction is going to invite us to maybe go ahead and feel okay about what we are committing to.
Conversely, and it just hit me, I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be some sort of news around marriage.
Yeah. News around marriage.
Like this sorts of commitments that we're allowed to make, because this can also just be
much around. It feels like such a Venus Saturn moment collectively.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, can everybody get married? Everybody being Pisces, right? Can everybody get married?
Can everybody get married?
Or is something...
Can everybody have money?
Yeah.
Right? The stock market is crashing right now. That's the other big thing, is the stock market is actually legitimately crashing right now. And it's still so unstable and unpredictable right now just because the current administration is so unpredictable.
Yeah. There could be like this could bring a sort of stabilization to that for a moment, though, because of the meet with Saturn, even though we still do have, and Venus will be separating from its sextile to Uranus. So it's like maybe the volatility of our landscape around money and literally society is going to start to kind of stabilize as those two come together. So that's, my hope is that there's a stabilization aspect happening here.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I think he is trying to backtrack on some of the tariff stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we get kind of a halt on all of that.
Yeah.
Until we get another aspect between Venus and Saturn in a few months, right? Yeah. Like
and we'll have to, and it's a good point. We're gonna be revisiting this
because of that 90-day bullshit. Anyways, that's too much.
So
let's go into Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, April 24th. This day, I think could feel somewhat okay. We have some semi-squares in the morning. I think they're going to feel a bit irritating.
Yeah. I think Thursday is one of the better days, but I think with the climate of everything around Thursday, it could just be that this is the day that we're just kind of sitting in the discomfort of it.
Yeah, it feels excitable with the semi-squares. Moon is going to semi-square Sun in Taurus. Sun is going to semi-square Jupiter in Gemini, and this feels excitable.
Definitely.
And definitely not comfortable. And considering that we had that square earlier, it's like it was being called to make some sort of change, take some sort of action, and now it's feeling a bit excitable about how many ideas it could go forward with, perhaps, or the information that it has now, like what is the right decision. We have the Sun semi-sextile Mercury in Aries at 6:49 a.m. This is kind of, I don't know, it feels definitely like contentious conversations, not full argument.
No, but I do think there's going to be a lot of, because again, we're seeing this contact again between Taurus and Aries.
Yeah, something's beginning.
Something's beginning for sure, and it feels a little self-protective, almost. It's like, you're right. It's like not a full-blown fight, but it's almost like we're not going to see eye to eye because I'm keeping things to my chest and you're keeping things to your chest.
And it could have to do with like freedom versus security.
Yep.
And definitely, I think the caution here is with Mercury and Aries to be sure that you really mean what you're saying, because there's a tendency to speak a little bit too fast or a little bit too off the cuff,
Yep.
or a little bit too centeredly.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a word.
Centeredly. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. But then at 7:16 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have the moon in Pisces square
Yeah,
Jupiter
keep
and
in mind
Gemini.
every Thursday, crap load of this stuff is happening like first thing in the morning. We're not even past 7 a.m.
Yeah,
with
it's
what we're talking about here. So this
yeah,
is all energy we're going to be waking up with.
yeah. But
Sorry, go
that's
on.
no, you're good. With the moon square Jupiter and Gemini, I don't think this square does not feel good. Like moon Jupiter contacts are supposed to feel good, but I think because we have the moon in Pisces, that there's just like an overwhelm of feeling and too many directions in which it could go. And so like you can't really put a pin on like how you're really actually feeling.
Exactly. So it's that mutable energy, right? Where it's like it can kind of go anyway.
Yeah. And and I'm sure that for some people that potentially have some aspects that this could feel really nice to, good on you, but it won't probably for most people.
Yeah,
it's just like more.
Yeah, it's excess.
More is more.
More is more. More is more. Yeah, almost just too many ideas.
Too many feelings.
Too many ideas, too many feelings, no way to know what to do with it. There's nothing grounding what's happening here. Yeah. Absolutely nothing is grounding this.
Yeah.
So that's why it's just kind of like you could just be kind of overwhelmed with thoughts and feelings, and it's all just kind of swirling around. And again, when we were talking about the potential of monkey mind happening on Monday, we're bringing in water signs. So it's going to be that same kind of
monkey feel,
but it's going to be in your heart too. So yeah, it's definitely going to feel more owie.
Yeah.
Sure.
We do have the Mercury in Aries quintile Jupiter Gemini at 7:23 a.m. And I think that this is really like a beautiful moment in which we're able to express ourselves relatively eloquently, because we have so many options in front of us.
Yeah.
And it can feel, in a chart, I would think that just feels really playful.
Yeah, but the quintile, it's creative, right? And Aries and Gemini love to be little curiosity shit stir types.
Yeah, I mean, this could be some really interesting ideas being expressed at this time.
Shit stirring, but in a playful way.
So scooting forward to 5:32 p.m., we have the moon sextile Uranus in Taurus. And so this can, again, whenever we have the contact Uranus, it can, a friendly contact, right? This is some sort of inspired moment, an intuitive, inspired hit of a bit of genius, a bit of being able to connect with people in new ways, to feel a bit of newness. Too.
A bit of newness.
Just also intuition. It's just like literally intuition.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the moon in Pisces. That feels like intuition, and there is a sense of newness, but that Pisces moon is also like
super psychic,
and like also at the end of things, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like being able to pull from a lot of past experience in order to help with this new initiative.
Yeah, and with that sextile, maybe there's a little bit more of a grounding into our reality too.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not just like floating off into the world. Now it's able to kind of settle into the dirt a bit.
Yeah. Definitely. And Taurus is down to kind of take whatever Pisces has going on and just kind of start toiling with it.
Yeah, it can use it. It can actually use that energy.
Yeah. This isn't like cardinal, like, let's make this project happen kind of thing. It's more just like, oh, like, let's take this energy and kind of see what we can make of it.
It can be very artistic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Super
I think it is
artistic.
very artistic. We've got Pisces, and then we've got
Taurus, the most
Venus Taurus,
artistic
right?
of the signs.
Yeah, it is very nice.
5:57 p.m., almost 6 p.m.
Moon
and
conjunct Venus.
Moon conjunct Venus and Pisces, and then at 7:18 Moon conjunct Saturn. So really, it's just like bam, bam. It's like this 3 hour or 2.5 hour hold of the Moon with Venus and Saturn. So it's almost like checking in and saying like, okay, so what commitments did we make here?
Yeah, yeah, because we're talking about that Venus Saturn conjunction that's happening this week.
Yeah,
and what we were talking
happened
about
on Wednesday.
Yeah, every time the Moon hits Venus this week, it's all, or anything hits Venus this week, it's also hitting Saturn.
Yeah.
So there's a waiting. Yeah, there's just this very committed heaviness to all matters of Venus. And so even with those little moon, like Moon conjunct Venus can feel really nice, but with that Saturn, it's going to feel heavier.
Yeah, and it could feel a little sad. It could feel a little like the ending of things. You know, maybe whatever commitments you made also brings a need to end something in order to begin something else.
And that's very Moon in Pisces.
It is.
Right?
It is. And also we do have a new moon happening later in the week.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something like the realization around what you need to wrap up so that you can move forward.
Yeah. And that's always something that happens with new beginnings, right? Is that that sadness of what you're letting go.
Yeah, it's like even in like moving out of the other place, I was like, oh, I'm so sad to leave this place. It's so cute. And then
it's so funny. I was thinking about how excited I was coming. No, I was telling Seven the other day after we moved. I was like, I'm so happy and I love that new place, but I'm gonna miss. I just got really attached to the routine of us doing that loop around Declan.
Yeah. So you know, it's there can be a sadness in having to release something in order to begin a new project, and even though it's almost like a nostalgia, I think is something there. So let's do Friday.
Thursday. I would say, just to sum up Thursday, it's not the heaviest day, and it's not the day where,
though we could have a little bit of some depression or nostalgia at the 7:18 p.m. with the Moon conjunct Saturn.
Sure. But in general, as far as like the major aspects of this week, they're not hitting on Thursday. So Thursday might be the breath in. So moving to Friday.
Friday, April 25th.
And we just go right in with Moon going into Aries. So
Moon in Aries.
Moon in Aries.
So immediately we get a bit more fired up emotionally. We are instinctively reacting a bit faster.
All that melancholy, you know, sweet, gentle emotionality of Moon and Pisces just goes right into like, okay, what's next?
And also, I mean, a Moon in Aries potentially has the tendency to reach for anger before it reaches for
absolutely,
you know. So it's like whatever you were processing, you know, and going through, now you are emotionally fired up. You're reacting a little bit faster. You could have a little bit more of like a outburst kind of moments here.
And like when we think about anger, right, a lot of people in the psychology community say that anger is a secondary emotion, right? We're using that to actually cover up deeper feelings that we're having. And that feels very Aries, where it's like, I don't want to feel the deeper stuff, so I'm just going to like have this reaction and then move forward.
And there's definitely a need for independence and freedom. And to the detriment of everything else.
Everything and everyone else.
A Moon in Aries is like, move. Just move out of the way.
Exactly. I'm busy. So Moon in Aries. So that's kind of what energy we're bringing to start off our Friday. And it's going to, you know, a little more than an hour after it goes into Aries, it's going to immediately make a conjunction to Neptune,
which could bring emotional confusion.
Emotional confusion.
Also feeling pretty dreamy. Like your visions have some sort of like spiritual purpose. You know, if
I think it can bring this really nice motivation to whatever it is that we're dreaming about. But it's not necessarily digging deep there. It's kind of just like, oh, I'm really excited about this thing. What if we just do it this way?
Yeah, I mean, in
right?
Moon Neptune contacts, especially like that conjunction, is just intuition
Mm-hmm.
with the danger of becoming delusional.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like Joan of Arc.
It does feel very Joan of Arc. I agree.
And then we have,
and Mars is still trining Neptune at this point.
Yeah, and then we'll have Moon
So-
trine Mars and Leo at 2:51 a.m., which again, now the creative juices are really flowing.
Creative juices, and again, a lot of Martian energy right now because Mars is trining Neptune, and then we start off Friday with that Moon in Aries conjunct Neptune.
Yeah.
In Aries. So there's just like a lot of Martian energy, but it's kind of in a weird place where it's hanging out with Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then there's the Moon trine Mars in Leo.
I think we're able to get a fair amount of things done today.
Yep.
Going into 6:31 a.m., we have that Moon sextile Pluto in Aquarius. So like it's almost like getting a little bit of a power up.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is definitely a
An
productive
intensity.
day. An intensity. We know that there's a lot of Martian energy going on.
Things could start to feel pretty critical though too.
I was gonna say it's. I was literally just about to say it's not even that you can get things done. This may be a day where you have to get things done.
Yeah.
Right, where the moment is now calling for it, and you have to act. So yeah, I'd say that like Friday is definitely starting. And keep in mind, we're just a day away from that Mars-Pluto opposition. So it really could start feeling like it's almost like the ball has just started rolling down the hill, and you're seeing it start to pick up momentum. I think Friday's going to feel like that. Friday's going to feel like the momentum is starting to build.
Yeah. We have Moon conjunct Mercury in Aries. And, you know, Moon Mercury it's almost like you're firing on all cylinders in a way, because your intuitive and emotional needs are in full alignment with how you're communicating and expressing yourself,
which could be a great way to communicate things right now on this day.
And it's quick. You know exactly what you need to say, and you do it, and it's exactly how you feel.
Yep.
It's a great time to express yourself, I would say.
Yeah. And again, wherever Aries is in your chart, that might give you some insight as to what needs to be said that day.
The topics,
right?
The topics that are happening.
Where's Aries for you?
Aries is my 8th house by whole sign.
Okay.
So definitely about like shared resources, endings, transformations, death, fear.
Yeah.
Just fear.
Just
in general.
fear. Just a lot of fear.
Yeah. Yep. Whenever things go through Aries, I usually have a lot of contact with the things that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And like awareness. So I'm sure that'll be fun for me.
I am always dealing with conflict when things are in Aries.
Yeah.
It's like what I'm hard built for it, is for conflict. So,
and then we get that quintile to Jupiter in the afternoon, 12:39 p.m. You know, I think this can feel quite lovely, actually.
Yeah.
Social.
A salve on the wounds that
social
are going to be this week. Social. Yeah. And that's good for Friday, right? Might be good to go and blow some steam on Friday, especially if there is a lot of conflict there or challenges that you deal with this week, and it's likely. If you need to go and burn off some steam, Friday evening is probably that afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a tremendous amount happening. Like, I would kind of look at Friday and go, okay, I have this little bit of a window where like nothing super major is happening. Though we have to say that like the opposition that will be happening tomorrow on Saturday, it could be arising now.
Yeah. And that's it goes back to what we're talking about, where it's
because
like,
we have that Moon sextile
Pluto.
You
have to act.
Yeah, the Moon sextile Pluto is triggering that opposition.
It's going to bring up everything that has been hidden, the things that are actually motivating all these conflicts, right?
So it's not that you won't get whatever is coming up for the Mars-Pluto opposition on Friday, because it's very possible that it could. That awareness is building, but there's some help here around expressing yourself, hopefully, in being able to like emotionally intuit how to act. At 5:50 p.m. though, we do have that Moon semi-square Uranus and Taurus, and I think this is like a nervous energy. Certainly pretty nervy. And again, that moon in Aries is always so quick.
Yeah.
To make its move.
Mm-hmm. And hates discomfort, right? So if it is put in a place of discomfort, it's just going to kind of like quickly try to like wiggle its way out of it, right?
Big stretch.
Hi, Bethany. Good job. You're so good.
Hi, sweet baby. So that's kind of what we are working with on Friday. And I think, again, keeping in mind that like that opposition has been building all week, it's almost like something is kind of looming in the background.
Yeah.
We know that this situation is coming to a head. Mm-hmm. So going into Saturday.
Anywhere in your life right now where you're just feeling like intense discomfort, like something's got to give, this is where it's going to give.
Yeah, there's definitely a give point here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it's in watching your friends' situations, you're like, okay, well, that's going to pop.
Yep.
I've definitely had a bit of that in watching how some of my friends have been operating in the world.
Yep. Whether you are protesting untenable work conditions in your work environment, as I have been doing, we're definitely at a boiling point at my job. And the people are pissed, as in our collective staff is pissed. And I keep on kind of thinking about that with this Mars.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see like what happens with like the negotiations that your board is happening and how that kind of comes to light and whether that, I mean, potentially would just incite more.
And we still have a lot of adversarial energy coming back at us from certain people who are like, we do not like that this change is happening. Yeah. And we're pissed at you for initiating it, you know. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. That's and then Saturday, April 26th. 1:44 a.m. Venus in Pisces sextile Uranus in Taurus. This is the exact sextile. So where the restructuring and the new ways of value, love, relating to others, being social, just relationship energy altogether, anything having to do with money, beauty, aesthetics, like all of that stuff. There has been some sort of restructuring, and this is kind of where like potentially we get like the full understanding of like what that is for the sextile. And the sextile again it's a friendly energy that you can use, but you have to make the effort. Sextiles do not come without a bit of reaching across the aisle to make the handshake.
Exactly.
So but it's just so interesting that this sextile has really just been happening with all of the stuff in our economy and with trade and the markets, especially around the one thing that it just came to my mind is that there's been a whole bunch of like little TikTok videos.
What are you doing?
That have been kind of exposing like the beauty industry, like the behind the scenes, and there's been like stuff around like there's this new way of looking at what you think or what you valued previously, and it's like shifting some people's like paradigms around like what is luxury, where does that ultimately really come from, how do you want to interact with that, especially Americans and like our consumerism kind of issues. But yeah, so
I think that's interesting. I think we're also just kind of at a what?
I always say hi, Allant.
They're like active right now. They're busy.
Hi guys.
Oh, now they want to play.
Okay.
Okay, you guys gonna do that right in front of the podcast? Okay. I think that there are a lot of questions about how we relate to each other too, and I think we're starting to see, you know, the whole like hyper individualism that the U.S. has bred. We're kind of seeing why that's not sustainable. And so I think that there's a lot of questions around partnership and how we relate to each other that are really coming into focus right now too.
Social cues. I mean, that's
social cues. And again, like what you were saying is like queer rights and you know, the laws around marriage and partnership. All those things feel really, really relevant right now.
They really do.
So,
and then we'll have skipping forward to moon sextile Jupiter. This is where the void, of course, will begin. Moon sextile Jupiter also feels pretty nice all that to say is I think it's just calm before the storm. More data before the big kahuna.
Yeah. And it was like you were saying it before with sextiles, like you really have to like reach across the aisle for them. So it can feel good, but it's only if you're aware of it. It's almost like I think that's a good opportunity to look at what is positive in that moment, but you have to choose to look at it.
Right. And looking at all of the information and options around you, Jupiter and Gemini, because there's certainly a lot of them.
There are going to be, I think that sextile will show us moments of insight of like, this is what good could come of this, but you have to be willing to see it.
It's also a bit emotionally excitable. I mean, we're moon in Aries, being touched by Jupiter just means more.
Yep.
So
there is an optimism with Aries.
There's an optimism for sure. And an optimism with Jupiter too, even Jupiter and Gemini.
Yeah, Jupiter is optimism. Yeah. Right? So
and then we go forward into the afternoon. Now we're in the afternoon, like that moon sextile Jupiter, the void of course begins. Like it actually feels pretty nice. However, we get the moon conjunct Chiron in Aries.
Gut punch.
Yeah, just feeling
like literally like a gut punch with Aries.
It's just feeling so sensitive.
Yeah.
Just sensitive, like a live wire almost. I mean,
yeah, with Aries, anything around wounding in Aries, it's just like all sitting on the surface and it's prickly, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that especially with everything else going on, it makes sense that kind of all of our sensitivities are going to be sitting right on the surface.
I think the biggest player truly of the entire week happens at 4:43 p.m.
Yeah.
This is like why we've been in it.
Yeah.
Why we've been going through it is because of the Mars and Leo opposite Pluto and Aquarius.
Yep.
Again, this is at 3 degrees, 46 minutes. Yep. If you have anything, plus or minus 3, maybe even 4 degrees, because even actually a little bit bigger considering
I would say bigger.
Yeah, the orb of Mars, I believe, is 8 degrees. So
and we're also visiting this third time around, right? So this is a story that's been building since November.
Yeah, since November. So, think about what you have, maybe even like 4 or 5 degrees on either side of this. So even if you have the very latest of the cardinal, you could be getting a little bit of a hit there too, which
especially if it's cardinal, you're gonna get a hit and you're gonna notice it.
Yeah, but the Mars and Leo opposite Pluto and Aquarius, again, violence is a possibility. This is power struggles. This is this could be something around like the really kind of obsessive awareness about our desire nature.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it necessarily is violence. We just need to keep it, have that broader perspective of what is violence. Because it's easy to think of violence as like me just like clocking you in the face or there being an actual like physical altercation. But you can, especially with Pluto, when we're bringing up like things that have been hidden coming to light, what are the ways in which people have been using manipulation and subversion to commit violence against others?
Yeah, and it certainly could be something around the martial law stuff.
Yeah.
Especially like the quote unquote self-pronounced king dictating that, people be punished for going up against him. This is the people up against the king.
People against the king.
Truly. Something like that. There could definitely be a explosive unearthing of secrets with Pluto as well. I mean,
and we're still in the early degrees of Pluto and Aquarius.
I mean, the next time that we get an opposition with Mars Pluto isn't until 2026.
Yeah. So this is an ongoing story, but this is a huge chapter.
What's interesting though about that opposition is that I believe it's again pretty much around the same degree. So it's as if this story happens, there is a pause and a dealing with whatever comes up here for the next year, year and a half. I think it's like not until November of 2026. Yeah. Did I write it down? October 4th, 2026 will be the next one. So it's almost like whatever comes up here has to be dealt with for the next year and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious what this final one is. This final push before we have a year and a half gap.
And isn't it interesting that we have this Venus Saturn conjunction happening right now at the same time? Like there is something that we are locking ourselves into for at least the next year and a half, right?
Yeah. And I think actually we can just start talking about Sunday, because we should talk about the new moon in relationship to this.
I agree. And that's the thing is, when we're talking about major aspects like this, it doesn't mean that at 4:43 p.m. that's when you're going to see the effects of it, right?
Yeah. It's just like this is when the exactitude happens around it, but it doesn't mean that something couldn't happen, even days before, or a few days after, though the effects of anything coming up after will probably be felt, they will be less intense because the aspect will be waning. Whereas if something is building into climaxing, it can feel potentially very, very explosive and very, very critical. But
karmically speaking, when we're talking about applying aspects, we're talking about something that you're still just like in the midst of learning. So
the rest of the day just has the moon semisextile Uranus, Venus, and Saturn, which I mean, there's things around, the destabilization of our, literally just the stability of our world, just kind of happening here. And there's something emerging, right? Venus has to do with value. All of these things, I think this has to do with money markets, because Uranus is often used in terms of money now, especially because we have so much digital money, digital currency,
Bitcoin and shit.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, also, why the I bet Bitcoin's gonna be a part of this conversation too. Trump and Elon and that crew, they just fucking love Bitcoin. Anyway,
I've been everything that has kind of happened over like the last, I want to say like few months, has really gotten me into wanting to have more of an education around financial astrology.
Me too.
So I'm like, oh, do I go down this? I'm probably going to go down that road very soon. I have a couple of books, and I'm going to look for some teachers that aren't fully conservative.
Tauruses.
Yeah, I want to find a Taurus that isn't conservative, and isn't a Republican, but we'll see what I can do. So
if you're out there and you're watching this, hit up Sid.
Okay, so but let's talk about Sunday, April 27th, because we have the moon entering Taurus. So now we have the void of course ends. Moon entering Taurus, now we are in a place where we have habits and needs that are really about security and safety and feeling resourced.
Moon is exalted.
Moon is exalted in Taurus.
So that's going to beef up all of that.
But the most important thing to keep in mind as the moon enters Taurus, just in a few hours after that, we have first we have the moon squares Mars and Leo, thus further triggering that Mars-Pluto opposition. But then at 3:17 a.m. we get this new moon in Taurus, which will happen at 7 degrees 28. So if you have anything around those degrees, even like pretty big orb, the moon has a 13-degree orb. So really into like the teens of fixed signs, you are a part of this story. The new moon in Taurus really talks about, new moons are always about beginning of a cycle,
initiating, beginning of a cycle, birth of a cycle, those kinds of things.
And a new moon in Taurus is like, I am trying to find my sense of my feet on the ground, stability. I am really about feeling comfortable and safe.
Safe and secure.
I
think those are the two biggest things with Taurus is, how do I feel safe and secure?
It's about resources. It's about feeling fully resourced.
And like how we value ourselves.
Certainly.
Our value systems. I think self-esteem can be a big thing with Taurus.
It can be. I think, but it's more about feeling resourced. It's like when I'm resourced, then I am safe. I have, therefore I am.
Yep.
And unfortunately, for this new moon in Taurus, it is absolutely baked to the gills with the Pluto Mars opposition. So now we have a fixed T square. And so it's like pushing us, like critically pushing us to embrace chaos.
Yeah. I think it's like entering a new stage of having to confront all the things that make us feel not resourced and not
well, in the empty leg of the fixed T square between Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius is Scorpio. So it pushes that energy into a scorpionic space, which has to do with complexity, which has to do with elimination, which has to do with like obsession, with going really, really deep. So there is something pushing us to go deeper into whatever has come up for us than we are even comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And it is forcing us to change, forcing us to make
forcing is the big thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, we're talking about energy where we don't have a choice in the matter, where things are going to come up with this Mars Pluto opposition in addition to this new moon where we have to meet the moment. It's not like the sextile where it's like blink and you miss it. It's like outside this isn't an internal experience necessarily, right? Outside circumstances are going to force us to confront this.
And then in the new moon being in Taurus has this Venus Saturn situation happening, right? Just having completed a cycle and is starting this new cycle. So here's another new thing around resources. We again have what else do we have here? Neptune is still, he's anoretic, he's hanging out. I thought it was particularly interesting that Jupiter was square the nodes for this as well.
Jupiter in detriment, squaring the nodes.
And just like there's something about hope here. There's something about being able to expand in the right way.
It feels a little bit like we found love. What is it? We found hope in a hopeless place or something,
Oh my God.
Finding hope in a hopeless place.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff around. I mean, Jupiter is one of the planets that people look at as, well, it's one of the social planets that has to do with economics. So again, we have more things around money. And I think the instability of the world's money, Jupiter in detriment.
And just the instability of the world's value system, right? Because we invented money. Money is just a system that we invented to, and I think this is an important thing, especially when we're talking about this new moon in Taurus, is we invented money to be symbolic of how much power one person has, right? The more money you have, the more power you have. And I think that's going to be a huge part of this conversation is, or certainly a reflection of how money defines our power structures in the world. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about this chart that feels like money and information being baked together. And we do know that, like, that money isn't something that just happens here in this tangible world where I like give you a dollar, right? Money is also given via technology. Money is invested in tech.
Yeah. Once you hit a certain like wealth point, it almost becomes this shapeless thing where it's like you can't lose it anymore. I'm thinking about like ultra rich people, and obviously I've never been a rich person, so I can't even quite describe it accurately. You gotta change the battery in your
that's the first time that happened. I really I hate that.
Interesting.
Okay,
change it before your house burns down.
We gotta wrap this up before there's too many beeps.
But yeah, it's just like money takes on a whole different form once you hit like 8-figure
Yeah.
8-figure wealth points,
Yeah.
where it doesn't even really have to exist or do what we expect money to do anymore. It just kind of exists in this almost like liminal existence for the ultra rich, where they don't even have to think about how much money they have. They just kind of like exist in this constant state of having excess.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to it's not as tangible as we think it is always, and I think that's a discomfort point for Taurus, right? Because Taurus wants things to always be tangible.
And there's such, I don't know, volatility and instability baked into this chart. Uranus is trine the south node, so there's something changing that is facilitating a releasing, right? And then there's also something facilitating the kind of north node Saturn Venus thing, right? Around, again, money, society, our social graces, how we kind of go forward, this new way of money kind of working in the world. I wonder if there's some sort of like weird introduction of a new monetary system thing.
I wouldn't be surprised. The first thing that came to mind was Trump was talking about giving wealthy immigrants gold cards instead of green cards.
Right.
For some reason,
yeah, for $3 million.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what's kind of coming to mind is could that be the beginning of, rather than just money systems and like a free market money system, it's like you got to have a card that determines, almost like a what's the Indian in India, what is the class system called?
The
case system, where it's like you're kind of like locked into place,
I will say
which is more the case for the American wealth system than we want to admit, but maybe it'll just become more prevalent.
Every planet is either answering to or working in a kind of a major aspect or a Ptolemaic aspect in this new moon chart, which really speaks to some sort of really big change. These aren't subtle. This is especially with Neptune on the Aries point, this is really pointing to our new dream. I think this new moon really does tell us a lot about what Neptune in Aries is about.
I agree.
So
I think it's kind of setting the stage for sure in a big way. I wonder if there's gonna be some sort of like international conflict that kind of sets the stage for a new structure of international relations. It could be things like that. It's a big week. It's a big week.
It's a really, really big week. And I just continue to think about like what that empty leg of that fixed T-square is. It's like, I mean, it's Martial, it's Scorpio.
It is.
It's forcing us to go deeper into, it's pushing us deeper into everything having to do with resources. And I don't like it, but
and I don't like it. I don't know a single person who's not broke right now. We're just struggling with money.
Do you have any final remarks after
I would say, like, in terms of a personal level, obviously that Mars Pluto opposition, pay attention to where those two planets are in your chart. That'll give you an idea. I would say just be prepared, because I don't think that there is unavoidable conflict. I don't think that conflict is avoidable for anybody this week. I think you're going to come up with some intense conflict, and I think we're all going to be confronting parts of ourselves and our ego selves that contribute to this. So take the breaks where you can. Monday, maybe.
And I think my advice is embrace change. Because otherwise there is like a kind of shock and trauma that will result if you don't just embrace the change that is kind of being thrust upon all of us.
Embrace change and pay attention to where you experience rage, where you experience anger,
and find healthy ways to to let that out, because anger is definitely a signature of this week.
Yeah, and explore what's hiding beneath that anger. Again, like supposedly anger is a secondary emotion. So what is, and I think with that Mars Pluto opposition, it is asking us to go deeper than what our anger is telling us. Find out what go deeper into those layers of that anger. Yeah, I think, especially because it's easy to say embrace change, but if we have this huge systemic thing that tears apart all of our resources and makes us all feel really insecure, it can be really hard to say like I don't want to embrace that change. Yeah. But it is okay to look at that and accept that change is happening, and then think about and we've been talking about this, since we started this, and especially thinking about these things moving into Aquarius, and the relationship between Aquarius and Leo is kind of like what role is my rage playing in this, and what role do I play in this as a whole. I think this is a week where it's really asking us to think about what role we are playing.
Yeah, we can't escape it.
We can't escape the change that's happening, so just think about the role that you're playing in it. Yeah. And the role that we can play moving forward.
And embrace community.
Yeah, definitely. Don't be alone. I think that there is going to be some temptation to just think that we're on our own, and that.
Yeah, there's a lot of solo energy with like Taurus and Leo and with Aries. Yeah. And that's not the way forward. The way forward is that North Node. Yeah. In
and Pisces. That's the way that we can embrace change, right? Is again what we're talking about, where we are as Americans socialized to be so singular and to be so self-sufficient. And we are, I do believe we are entering an era where not only is it not preferable to be self-sufficient, it may not be possible. Word. So we may need to start embracing, like, start talking to people about how much money you have. If you're at home, I've had so many situations with friends come up where like they only tell me until later. They're like, I'm completely broke and I didn't buy groceries this week. It's like, you need to tell people so that we can help each other have food. Yeah. Start talking about your finances with people. And again, and that goes back to the shifting of like social norms, right? Is we need to change our relationship around money and how we share resources. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a huge conversation that comes up this week. So
fun.
Good stuff.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, good luck to you. And we'll see you for Monday another time.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.